Now we're going to deal with required subjects rather than elective topics. Care and cleaning is a must. It's a required topic. In fact, some of this is required prior to even giving consideration to electives that we just mentioned. Much of what we need to know comes to us from Video Club number 3. In this excerpt, 1993, we will touch on washing, drying, why dust doesn't cling to cut glass, the 2 enemies of cut glass, cleaning stains from containers, and how to handle broken pieces.
I told you once before that there are a series of questions people ask at shows, and it doesn't seem to matter whether the show is in the East Coast or the West Coast or wherever. People ask the same things, and when they come by the booth, they always say, well, what do you wash this stuff in to make it so bright and shiny? Or I have some pieces and they're not bright like yours. It must be the lights in the mirrors. Well, I tell them having good glass helps, and of course the lights in the mirrors are some aid also. Now, the big thing that people need to realize is that we clean our glass and we wash it just like you do, we rinse it just like you do, but the main difference is in the drying. And I want to get into just a little bit about a piece, and I found a good example this weekend. It's a Sinclair pattern 10-inch plate in their keystone and border pattern. This particular piece was so filled with soap, and as the cameraman turns around to focus on it, I hope he can get in enough to show you these little hob stars in here are literally just packed solid with soapy film. And it actually looked like one of the new pieces coming in from Europe. When you look at it from the other side, it's all frosty looking. And it would have been easy to pass up if my wife hadn't recognized the pattern right away. So this is a piece, it's a good example. We will wash this piece in soapy Joy. We use Joy over the other soaps because it seems to rinse better. This will soak for a couple of days in sudsy water, and then we will scrub it with an old toothbrush until some of that soap film comes out. Now, in one that's caked so much as this, we may actually have to wash it 2 or 3 times and scrub it 2 or 3 times before it comes clean, but believe me, it will come clean. Then, once it's washed, we rinse it in the same temperature water, and then we dry it thoroughly. Now, the drying is the main ingredient, and the drying is where you keep the soap film from building up for the future. Now, over to here. So, let's talk just a little bit about the washing procedure and so forth. After we wash it in the soap and rinse it thoroughly, we dry it with a soft towel of some type. But then in order to get down into the deep cracks and crevices of a piece, we actually found the best thing is to take an old cotton t-shirt, an absorbent t-shirt, and lay it over the piece and then scrub it with a dry toothbrush. And it forces those bristles down inside there, and that cotton soaks it all up. They used to tell me in the Marine Corps that if you cleaned your rifle with an old cotton t-shirt, you won't get lint on it. And if you don't get lint, you get liberty that weekend. So I learned the hard way, and it works. So you need to bear in mind that the temperature of water is important, and we wash in lukewarm water and we rinse in the same temperature. But believe me, the drying is the most important part. A normal common bowl, or say a water carafe like we just looked at perhaps in the Russian, might take 5 minutes to dry thoroughly if you really do a good job on it. But the one thing that's interesting about cut glass, and Dorothy Daniels tells us this in her early book, that dust does not cling to cut glass. Well, nobody really believed this for a long time. Then there was an occasion to send a piece of glass, new glass, to be analyzed because some collectors wondered why their new glass got dusty and their old glass didn't. And they found out that there's an element in the new glass that draws moisture from the air. And although we can't feel it with our hands, there is moisture on this glass enough to make dust cling. This element is not in the old glass, and it either repels the dust or the dust just falls on by, but at least it doesn't get that dirty. Now, while we're on that subject, I wanted to mention that cut glass just has two enemies. Now, it doesn't count rowdy grandsons, but the two enemies that I refer to are ammonia, and an open bottle of ammonia in the same room will eat pits in your glass. If you've heard that Grandma washed her glass in ammonia and that's why it sparkled, believe me, that glass isn't around today. The other enemy of cut glass is the sudden change in temperature. In years past, when Sharon's family lived in northern Minnesota, we had occasion between shows to go up and visit when the temperature was 55 below zero for a week at a time. Clear up by the Canadian border, we had our glass in the car, and it was wrapped in the hospital pads that we carry it in, and it survived without any danger at all. And the reason was that we did not expose it to a sudden change in temperature. Had we wanted to see a piece that was out there in the truck, we would have brought it into the house and left the box closed for 24 hours before we would even think about bringing it out into the room, and then we would probably reach down in there and feel it to make sure it felt like it was at room temperature. A sudden change in temperature and ammonia, and otherwise you're going to have good luck with your glass. Also, while we're talking about care and cleaning, and this is important, containers. Containers get cloudiness, and people constantly ask, how do you get these things clean? Well, we have tried everything. In the 20 years we've been in this business, we have tried everything from that has been advertised as a commercial product for this purpose. We've tried Polydent, we've tried Tidy Bowl, you name it. We have finally settled down after trying all of them to find out that white vinegar seems to work better than anything else. There's two reasons why we use white vinegar. One of them is that when you put it in there, you can put the piece that you're soaking back up on the shelf with the rest of your glass and no one knows that it's being soaked. Brown vinegar makes it ugly. The biggest problem that people have with vinegar is they don't leave it in there long enough. It cannot hurt the glass. And the longer it soaks, the longer it works this crustiness loose that's down inside a piece. After it's soaked, like say maybe 2, 3, even as long as 6 months, if the stain is bad, then we take a coat hanger that's all opened up and it's covered with adhesive tape so there's no metal that can touch the glass. Then we take nylon netting down in there and massage this while the vinegar's still in there. And that's the second reason you use the clear vinegar. You can see the stuff coming loose as you work your way around. And lo and behold, we have seen bottles that are just totally white turn clean again. And it just takes a little patience and a little time. There's also several people who clean these professionally, and they're members of the Cut Glass Association, and if you would like to inquire of a member, I'm sure there's several names available of people who do a real fine job with cleaning these out, either with polishing some way or tumbling them. But often you can do them yourself, and it's really kind of a lot of fun. The one other thing I want to talk to you about on the care and cleaning subject is breaks. People ask me, I've got a bowl that broke right smack down the middle in 2 distinct pieces. What do I do with it? And your first thought is to tell them to pitch it. But if it's a family heirloom and something that they really treasure, the first question I ask, and they always look kind of strange, I ask them how old their dentist is. You see, the young dentists really enjoy trying to put these pieces back together using some of the new high-powered, high-tech epoxies that are on the market today. If you have an old dentist who doesn't want to mess around with something like this, then you may be out of luck. But if you've got a young, adventuresome dentist who's out of med school in the last 10 years, he will know all about the brand new clear drying epoxies, And he will treat this as a real challenge, and every dentist that I've sent a piece to, the people come back and say the guy really had a ball and he did a great job. Now, of course, the piece has no real value anymore, but for sentimental reasons, you can put it on a shelf. At Christmas time, they can fill it with ornaments or something. And the only thing we don't know about the epoxies of the future is that maybe they're going to turn bright orange in 10 years. But for the meantime, they dry clear and they look beautiful.